good morning to you viewers. Let's begin with the biggest trending story. Nigerians in the United States trooped out to celebrate Nigeria at 64 on the streets of New York. Let's take a look. Again, I always say happy birthday, Nigeria. But Nigerians in New York, they are celebrating. I mean, it's beautiful to see that. But you know, in Nigeria, it was a different story. Well, in Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu led other top government officials to mark Nigeria's 64th Independence Day celebration at the forecourt of the State House in Abuja. The much-touted low-key event themed, reflecting on the past, inspiring the future, commenced with the arrival of the president as a special guest of honor and other dignitaries who were treated to a variety of unique performances by a combined mass band and displays put together by a cultural troupe drawn from 6 geopolitical zones. The guests also witnessed the presidential change of guards, which paved the way for a Nigerian Armed Forces color patrol and displays. The presidents also cut the anniversary cake and released pigeons to symbolize peace. Well, all right, this was a great celebration yesterday. They said it was a low-key event, but a lot of Nigerians will disagree with that event, obviously. But there are so many reactions that have trailed this anniversary. Let me take this reaction from Peter Obi, who wrote, "When we compare ourselves to countries that gained independence around the same time before or after us, Nigeria stands out as a nation in decline, urgently in need of rescue from further decay. On this day, therefore, we must make a solemn commitment to build a nation that is truly independent from the state capture that has dragged it into failure and kept its people in suffering. We must celebrate a nation free from tribal disunity and religious disharmony. We must build a new and productive Nigeria that prioritizes the well-being of its citizens. That is the independence we should celebrate as a nation whose greatness remains possible." Let me take Atiku Abubakar's reaction. He wrote, "It is deeply regrettable that our current landscape reflects a troubling decline in electoral credibility, increasingly manipulated by those in power. Our political milieu has become corrosive. Opposition parties languish in weakness, while the ruling party appears to manipulate internal processes to render them ineffectual. Nigeria teeters on the brink of a one-party dictatorship, and it is incumbent upon all politicians and statesmen of integrity to rise and reclaim our democracy from the encroaching shadows of oppression. In closing, I make an impassioned appeal to political leaders across all party lines. Let us forge a formidable coalition, one that will provide Nigerians with a credible opposition capable of steering our beloved nation towards a promising future." 2 opposition leaders have reacted to the celebration. Before I take your comments, I'd like for us to tie in all these stories together. From yesterday's speech, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, during his nationwide broadcast, appealed to Nigerians to endure with his administration, saying that he is aware of the struggles many Nigerians are facing with rising cost of living. The president also highlighted that our founding fathers chose democracy as a form of government which launched the dream of our great country.
Exactly 64 years ago, our founding fathers chose democracy as a form of government and launched the dream of a great country that will lead the rest of Africa out of poverty, ignorance, and underdevelopment. a beacon of hope for the rest of Africa and the world. Over 6 decades later, we can look back and Nigerians worldwide can see how well we have succeeded in realizing the lofty dream of our founding fathers.
All right, we say he's accurate in this respect, our founding fathers. Well, let's take one reaction that actually made the rounds. This was Nigeria's first prime minister. Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa led the Nigerian delegation to the 15th regular session of the United Nations General Assembly and made the country's maiden speech to the world body on October 7th, 1960, just 1 week after Nigeria gained her independence and assumed the rights and responsibilities of a sovereign state. Tafawa Balewa thanked the body for accepting Nigeria as a fellow member of its organization and pledged that Nigeria will work with other African states for the progress of Africa.
On behalf of my countrymen in Nigeria, I thank you all most sincerely for accepting us as a fellow member in this organization. We are properly grateful for this recognition. Fourthly, Nigeria hopes to work with other African states for the progress of Africa and to assist in bringing all African territories to a state of responsible independence.
Have we achieved that goal, Rufai Oseni?
We've fared well in some instances, but we've not fared well. You see, despite all of the shenanigans we talk about, let's not forget the greatness of this country. I might come and condemn the leadership. It's the leadership I condemn. I've never been in doubt of the greatness of this country. This was the same Nigeria that stood tall for apartheid, against apartheid, I should say. This was the same Nigeria that had the likes of Henry Edifo-Okpe, that was challenging the British might as minister in this country when apartheid was raging. This was the same Nigeria that stood with Zimbabwe. We raised money for them. So in terms of creating that leadership of the African continent, we have. I mean, I've read many books on that. There's a new book out by Yemi Ogunbi that talks about interviews with world leaders, where he was talking about the respect Julius Nyerere had for Nigeria. The truth has to be said. We have stood tall. But over the years, there's also been a decline because of the leadership. Most of it are the military regime that precipitated this great decline. Nigeria, from being a beacon of hope, now became a country that missed the Nations Cup because of, spat between Nigeria and South Africa, because of the military regime. Nigeria now become a country that is so economically backward now that the CFR of those neighboring West African countries cannot. Now it's even better than the Naira. These were the same people that used to come and do menial jobs here because of the strength of the Naira. Nigeria has gone bad economically that to get food is now a problem. Where I just asked, how much is the bag of rice now? I hear it's dropped over 100,000 as we speak today. We have fared well in the past. We have shown leadership. And that's why we call on our leadership. And how do you provide leadership? You provide leadership by also having a viable opposition. But you see, people like Atiku Abubakar that are calling for a coalition, he has not answered many questions in the last election that a lot of people ask him. That's why some people will say Wike has a grouse. Despite the fact that he's doing it overboard, he has a grouse. When he was supposed to think of the greater interest, he was also thinking of his own interest.
Okay.
And that's why when you say a coalition, is it these ones that are fractures that are going to come together to have a coalition where the problem is everybody wants to be president?
Right.
Nobody wants to step down for one another.
Right.
So, and also showing that video, that was the golden voice of Africa. I'm talking about Tafawa Balewa. That was the man that when he died, there was little or no money in his bank accounts. Those ones served.
Yeah.
They were not there because they want to loot the resource of the nation. That was when Nigeria, a couple of years after, went ahead on a state visit to America, and you had the Vice President of America come and receive him in the airport, and there was a lot of enthusiasm about Nigeria then. That was when Nigeria was listed on the Times magazine for a lot of the prospect this nation had. But guess what? We've had wars in between, the civil war, which ought not to have happened.
Right.
And a lot of things have crippled Nigeria. Today we're having agitations of division. But I'm never in doubt of the greatness of this country. But I beg our leaders, let this country breathe. Because you are the ones killing this country.
Yeah, we've heard that several times. But also there were a lot of conversation surrounding President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's Independence Day speech yesterday, and the Cable Index actually, provided they did a breakdown. They did an amazing breakdown. If we can actually pull those, some of those key points. Actually, this is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. These are some of the excerpts from his speech. He said, thanks to the reforms, our country attracted foreign direct investments worth more than 30 billion in the last year. 2, we inherited a reserve of over 33 billion in 6 months. 3, we have paid back the inherited forest backlog of $7 billion. 4, we have cleared the ways and means debt of over 30 trillion. And that's a conversation that I want us to actually touch on. 5, we have reduced the debt service ratio from 97% to 68%. 6, we have managed to keep our foreign reserve at $37 billion. 7, we have elimination of we have eliminated, I guess that's what they're trying to say, we have eliminated over 300 Boko Haram and bandit commanders in 1 year. But Dr. Abati, I heard you earlier comment, because I did send you the story and the comment from Victor, who is an attorney, and he talked about the fact that he handled the 30 trillion ways and means debt. Let me just pull up his tweet there. He wrote, how can President Tinubu come out to say that his government has cleared ways and means debt? I, Okpatola Victor, was the lawyer that handled the lawsuit against federal government, CBN, Debt Management Office, Ministry of Finance, and others, asking the court to declare the accumulated ways and means and scrutinization as illegal. So I know as a matter of fact that this government never for once cleared that debt. It only scrutinized that debt, and by so doing converted trillions of naira worth of federal government debt to Nigeria's debt. So the 30 trillion naira that President Tinubu mentioned in his Independence Day speech that it cleared was definitely a lie. It was an intentional technical language used to hoodwink Nigerians into believing that a 30 trillion naira debt was actually cleared. It definitely wasn't paid. You have commented on this, Dr. Bati. Ayo, quickly.
All right, yes. Like you said, the Cable just dissected, fact-checked everything that he said.
Yeah.
A number of people have said, oh, because it's been securitized, it means that where before it wasn't securitized, now it's been structured. But the truth is that, like Mr. Okpatola said, it was a creative use of language to sound good. When you hear the president's speech on the surface of things without going into the technical explanation of securitization or not securitization, it is the fact that people feel like when you hear that, oh, one debt has been cleared, we have been able to sort it out. But in principle, what he has just been done is that he has been restructured. But over the years, I think about over 30 years, Nigeria will still have to pay. So what the breakdown for that is that the federal government owed, by printing ways and means, and then now the Nigerians will have to pay for this particular debt. Now, beyond that is the fact that there was criticism around how this was obtained. Was due process done? Did the National Assembly approve it? What was the money used for? We were not involved in that process, so why should we then be involved in the process of paying back? And this is why accountability is key. So just to mention that.